Swagoo. Macus Spears joining us now. Marcus, you look at the total domination for the Cowboys in that game on the defensive side. I know Cooper Rush gets a lot of credit for winning in the absence of Dak Prescott, but where does this defense that the Cowboys have rank in your mind in the history of Cowboys defenses?
Oh, man, it's up there. I mean, even going back to last year, but through these first 5 games, there's not a more dominant unit in the NFL. Now, when we talk team totality, obviously other things come into play. But when you talk about a unit, specifically for any team across the NFL, I think people fear the Dallas defense more than any other unit. Now, you would say offensively the Buffalo Bills would be in that conversation. San Francisco has a really good defense. But when you think about the layers and the guys, and beyond Micah, it is one of the most devastating units to have to play against in the NFL. And then even when you do playing well, you got to deal with a generational talent in 11 and Micah. I think people forget how good DeMarcus Lawrence is at football because Micah Parsons is there. Dorrance Armstrong is having a under-the-radar Pro Bowl season. Dante Fowler reemerges with his connection with Dan Quinn. You're getting great safety play. You got linebacker, Vander Esch, getting to the ball. And I just think from front back, and I used to always say that defenses have to tie in. It has to be. If you're weak in some areas or if you're not as strong in some areas, you got to overcompensate for that in another unit on the team. And that defensive line and their ability to rush, and more importantly, what I saw this week, their ability to stifle the run game and get teams in the third long yardage situation. It's the most devastating unit in football.
You know, Marcus, the thing that I like to see about this defense, and any defense for that matter, is a little swagger. You know, I mean, and this defense seems to really have that swagger. Like it's, you're not going to run on us. You're not going to score on us. They just have that confidence right now that's just boiling over.
Yeah, listen, guys, it is contagious, right? Like you start the NFL goes in sections. And I played those defenses when I was there in my 8 years. And we could start week 1, 2, you start to kind of figure it out. Like, what are we going to be? Who's dominant? What are our strong suits? What are the areas that we need to hurry up and get better in? What are some areas we have a little bit of time because they won't be exposed when you look at your opponents that's coming up? And then you put together a performance where you literally dominate a game enough to win it without playing offense or having a successful offensive outing. And then you have games like this. And granted, like the Rams' offensive line, we knew that would be an issue, but the dominance in which was displayed from front to back, and now Diggs is playing a lot better. I know he gave up a pass, but every cornerback in the league will give up one eventually or two.
Hey, Marcus, we're getting a bad connection on your phone right now. It almost sounds like you just went underwater diving somewhere out in the Gulf Coast or something.
Man.
I'm going to put you on hold.
Guys?
There you go.
Is this better?
Oh, yeah, that's much better, much better.
Okay. Yeah, my apologies for that. But what I was saying is, like, you get to a point where you start to actually know as opposed to believe or I think. You get to a point where you know this can carry out each and every Sunday. And I think that shift has happened with these guys. Now, obviously, their toughest test is coming up this weekend, but I saw Arizona have some success against Philly from a defensive standpoint as far as getting pressure on them and keeping them in low scoring totals. But this defense, man, they know now. They know that not only they know they're good enough to control games, they're good enough to win games. And I don't think it matters who you have offensively. It just doesn't matter to them. They are going to play and have this success. Does that mean they won't give up points? No. Does that mean that teams won't have answers and counters for it? No. But if you can point to a specific thing from a defensive standpoint, when you start to actually know how good you are, you know the play is coming. You know the turnover is coming. You know you're going to get to the quarterback on a critical third down, and it's going to change the complexion of the game. That's what this unit knows about themselves now. So it doesn't matter who walking into the stadium. Man, we talked last week, and I think one of y'all got frustrated with me when I was talking about who we played and the competition level and what else. Yeah, I felt it. I felt it. But I'm one of those guys that try to always temper expectations because I am still, like I said about this defense, you're still trying to figure out who they actually are, as opposed to things falling their way. And, it's some luck to win championships. It takes luck to win games. You got to have some things go your way. This defense is forcing things, though. And when you get to that point, you start to just run away with it. And I think that unit will continue to run away with it. Now, what you hope is when that gets back, we do become a 27 to 30 point a game team with that defense. And now you can actually have a conversation about the playoff run, Super Bowl potential.
It's going to be interesting to see. Former Dallas Cowboy Macus Spears joining us here. And, of course, you can see him every day on ESPN hosting NFL Live. Macus, broad from a player's perspective I'm looking for here, but you look at what happened. You brought up the Arizona-Philadelphia game with Kyler sliding and then the debate on who was saying spike it or not. You had, the Los Angeles Chargers coach going for it deep in his own territory, or even the dumb play call that Jimbo Fisher had in the Aggies game on the final play trying to upset Alabama. When you're a player and you see coaches do something that makes everybody scratch their head, how do you, how do players inside that locker room try to keep their emotions in check when they realize their coach may have cost them an opportunity?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, guys, it's cliche to say, well, coach believed in us, so we went for it. Or coach thought we were good enough or thought we would execute at a high level. And then, it's hard in the media because if it works, we'd be like, yeah, that dude believed in his team and he knew that he had the right play call set up, and it doesn't work out. Here's my problem, specifically with the Chargers. You lost 4 or 5 games like that last year.
Yep.
And I get it at the analytics, and I understand that part of it. I work with Mina Kimes, who's helped me understand that more than anything. And some things I agree with, but I'm still in my heart of hearts an old school football player. Like, give me an opportunity to either make the play, believe in your defense to go back out, and have an opportunity to close and seal a game. And I think when you get to the locker room, when you on the losing side, you ask yourself, how calculated was this? Like, was it there and our teammates just didn't execute? Or was it our coach leaning into analytics as opposed to saying, I'm going to trust my guys? Right? There's a difference in that. And we have so much nuance now in the game when it comes to analytics, when it comes to who's actually running those plays that you call and Jimmy's and Joe's over the play call or the play design. So when you get back to the locker room and you're on the end of a loss, you absolutely question your coach. Especially if you're a defensive guy and he, quote unquote, took that opportunity for you to go out on defense and in the game. And when it happens, if it happens over and over again, it starts to permeate, and then you start to question if this guy really is the guy for you. And if this thing would have worked out a different way for the Chargers, those questions would have started rising about Brandon Staley because of what happened last year. Now, that takes time because on the other end, we've seen Harbaugh in Baltimore go for some fourth downs, and the plays actually being there, they just didn't execute. So it's like, man, we got Lamar Jackson. We got to get 2 yards. We got Andrews. The play is there. A guy just tip it or they get a pressure or whatever. So I think the play and actually how it happens determines how you respond to it. But more importantly, man, like for defensive guys, the first thing we always going to tell you is I wish coach would have just gave us a shot to go out there and stop. And that can start to become an issue if it happens time and time again.
Interesting stuff. All right, Macus, I'm going to preface this question by saying I am not calling for a quarterback controversy, none of that kind of stuff. But here's from your standpoint, because we heard Mike McCarthy today. He doesn't know about Dak or what his status is. Obviously, they'll find out later in the week. But with a game like Philadelphia coming up, and then you've got Detroit and Chicago after that, do you think Dak is the right guy to start this particular game? I say when he's ready, he should play. But if he's a little rusty with what the stakes are with this Philadelphia game, what are your thoughts? Tell me I'm wrong.
Hey man, I will tell you this and I confess. I'm in between a rock and a hard place, like you are. Obviously, for me, I think I just harken back to I want the better player out there at the position, and that would be that. And we've seen quarterbacks spend time away and come back and have a tremendous amount of success because they've been able to kind of watch the game and see the fluidness of it. And make no mistake about it, man, Cooper has done a phenomenal job. He's made some drives at the end of games that have really mattered in wins. But if you are going to go 10 for 16 for 102 and no touchdowns, I don't think that's going to get it done against Philly, right? It's specific teams and situations. Now, to your point about Russ with that, him potentially being rusty, not being able to just function at a high enough level because it's your first game back against a really good football team. That's something you have to take into account. But I'm going to tell you this straight up. If Dak can grip that ball and I can see him rip it at practice, he's going to be in this game, buddy. I got to get them $40 million out of him. You hear me? And then when you think about going forward, like this division and this opponent has become real to you now. Like the Cowboys have now proven that they can win this division. I picked Philly before the season started. I didn't know all of this was going to transpire with Dallas. I didn't know their defense was going to be like one of the best historically that we've seen through the first 5 games of the year. But ultimately, if Dak is ready and it's this week, I'm putting him in there. If it's next week, I'm putting him in there because I also understand that while I'm playing the short game, I also got to play the long game. And my plan is not to go into important games down the stretch and playoff games without Dak Prescott. So if I drop one because I'm knocking the rust off, and maybe that's not Philly to your point, maybe that's Detroit or that's Chicago. If I drop one, I'm fine with that as long as I'm getting him them reps and getting him more acclimated to playing because I know that's going to be my guy down the stretch.
Very true, and I couldn't agree. Macus Spears joining us here on the Blitz. This game in Philadelphia, it's a Sunday night game.
Mm-hmm.
They hate the Cowboys. Cowboys love going in there and trying to quiet up that crowd. What kind of atmosphere with a 5-0 Eagles team do you expect to see Sunday night?
It's 100% playoff atmosphere. I hope Dallas looks at this within that building, and I'm going to talk to some guys. I hope they look at this as a playoff game. Very rarely do you get the opportunities, especially in division, where you not only potentially have to play them again, because I don't know if you guys remember, I think in 2008, we played Philly the last week of the season for the division, and then we played them the first wild card game in the playoffs. And we beat them both times, but I remember having to do that. So not only are you potentially facing a matchup that you may have to see down the road again, you also jockey in for position to maybe not have to see them unless further down the road in the playoffs. So I hope that's how they're approaching it, and we know the coach speaking the cliche talk. Yeah, one game at a time, 1 week at a time. You just want to go get a win. No, this one means more. Not only because it's the division, but because they're 5-0 and you're 4-1, and you're gauging how far or how close, or even where you may be better or ahead against an opponent that not only are you going to have to see again, but you might have to see again in the playoffs. So I think they should treat it like a playoff game. It's going to be a playoff atmosphere. I don't know how it gets in Lincoln. And them fans, man, the hate, it's a really feeling.
Macus Spears. Watch him every day on NFL Live on ESPN. And, of course, he joins us every Monday here on The Blitz.